down, but not before we get some of the big kahunas. Yeah, there's actually some of the most watched stocks that report at the end of earnings season and not just at the beginning. And who is that? Well, it is the beast, as I call it, NVIDIA. They're reporting this week, but we're also getting some other interesting names, as I mentioned, including Snowflake, Intuit, Ulta, and Toll Brothers, one of the home builders. And that one is going to be real vital to watch because not only have those stocks soared, but we now have the mortgage rates back above 7%. So let's dive in on some of these charts and take a closer look because things aren't over yet. And this week is going to be important. So taking a look, starting off with the home builders, we have Toll Brothers. And as I said, this one is important because they report a little bit later in the season, as we're seeing. And so we haven't heard from any of the home builders in a couple of weeks now. And what is happening, you can see from this chart, they have an excellent earnings surprise track record which is that one miss, which is impressive given that that was right when the pandemic hit. And now you can see they just keep the streak going. They also had a big beat last quarter, even though the analysts have gotten more bullish. So they've been able to perform above what the analysts have been doing. But now we have those mortgage rates rising, and it's unlikely that that impacted last quarter, but it could impact guidance. So we're all going to be watching this, even though the shares are near all-time highs here. Still cheap, trading at 7 times, but will we see these shares pull back more if Toll talks about a weakening in what they're seeing in the sales? That's what I expect, but we're going to soon find out. So that's Toll Brothers, ticker TOL. Then we're going to get the beast, as I call it, NVIDIA. What is there to say, right? Except let's talk about the earnings surprise track record. They did have those 2 misses in 2022, and that's when things were looking a little grim. But that's before the turnaround with the AI demand. And now you can see the shares are surging up, and they, had the 2 beats, but they're small beats in the last 2 quarters. Now these shares are at 5-year highs, year to date up almost 200%. And the last 2 years up 108% versus the NASDAQ, which is down about 10%. So can this keep going? Should we all just own NVIDIA? NVIDIA and nothing else? I don't know, but this is going to be an important report and a lot of pressure on NVIDIA to beat again and to guide well again. So we'll see if they can do it. Then we're going to switch over to Snowflake. Kind of a different story on this one. Remember, it was a 2020 IPO. Then it had the 3 misses in a row to start off, but it's got its, act together since then with all those beats, 8 in a row. And some of them have been quite large the last couple of quarters, but it hasn't done enough to really move the needle. Year to date, the shares are up only 3%, which is really underperforming. And 2-year stack still down 47%. So, can this earnings report do anything to turn these shares around? We'll see. Then we're going to switch over to Ulta, as I mentioned earlier, the big beauty company. And look at this chart, just 2 misses in the last 5 years, put together a great streak during the pandemic, even though its stores were closed, but now obviously reopened. They are a U.S. domestic only retailer. And so they're taking advantage of that consumer spending, which has been pretty good. Now, you do see the big drop there in 2023 in the shares, even off the earnings surprises. And that's because the guidance was a little bit lower on same store sales than what everybody was hoping. But is all that priced in? And we have back to school and now back to, or soon to be, holidays coming up. So this one's going to be interesting. Year to date, the shares are actually down 3.4%, but over the 2-year stack, up 25.5%. That beats both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ over the 2-year stack. So Ulta, everybody's going to be watching this. I own it in my own personal portfolio, and we'll see what happens. Then we're going to wrap it up with Intuit. Oh, I don't have the chart up. Well, that's not good. But Intuit, surprise stock, right? I've talked about it a couple times on the earnings all stars, and you can see just that one miss. So they are an earnings all star, but the street kind of not liking what they're hearing in the last couple of years after they coming off those highs in 2021. Now, Intuit, remember, is QuickBooks, TurboTax, tax, Credit Karma. There is some issues that a lot of people are worried about TurboTax, that if the US government through the IRS finally launches its own equivalent free version of a TurboTax, then they could take a hit. But that really hasn't happened still yet. So TurboTax still kind of the leader on the tax preparation side. But they do have some of these other brands like QuickBooks. So, that's something to watch here. Year to date, these shares are up 25%. And again, that's beating the S&P 500 up 13.8 during the same time. A little bit weak over the 2-year, down 11.3. And they're now trading at about 31 times. So can they keep this momentum that they have regained here in 2023? Or will this one also head back lower to kind of retest those 2022 lows? We will see. So as you can see, it's an interesting group of stocks here. We do have more of the retailers reporting this week. A lot of the niche retailers that I've talked about in the past will be reporting, including like Williams-Sonoma, Kohl's, Macy's, Nordstrom, and a bunch, as I said, of other niche type of retailers. And then we're really going to start to slow down in the next couple of weeks as this earnings season winds down and we wait for third quarter earnings season, which is coming up quicker than we think in the middle of October. So I'm going to end the Earnings All Stars videos for this cycle with this video, but I will be tweeting out a lot of the extra charts over the next couple of weeks. Some of my favorite retailers, I'll be tweeting those, and I'll be tuning into some of these conference calls, including RH, which is coming up, and that's always an interesting one as well. So be sure to follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter. I do post some on Stock Twits, but if I'm covering the conference calls, that's usually mostly on Twitter now or X. So be sure to follow me over there, just at my name at Tracy Reineck. And I will see you again next earnings season. Be sure to get all of these videos, including this one, on Zacks.com/YouTube. And I'll see you again in the fall.